We're excited to welcome to the show the coordinator of skill acquisition with the Pittsburgh Pirates and the manager for the Dutch Baseball Federation, Martijn Nijhoff. Martijn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How did I do on the pronunciation?
It was pretty good.
You can be honest.
American.
Yeah, for an American. That's fair. I'll take that. And the bar is pretty low for an American.
Yeah. No, I actually a lot of Americans pronounce my name pretty accurate. So
really?
It's yeah.
Well, give me the.
Or maybe they practice a lot. I don't know.
Yeah. You're world famous here. I know we were just talking before we recorded that you had a holiday 4 weeks on the East Coast. And I was thinking for our American mindset, we take like a week holiday and that's a long time. It seems like the Dutch and Europeans are so much better at like spending time away, spending more time. It seems like, and maybe that's the reason why Dutch people are so happy. I don't know. Is that's pretty common though? You guys have like long holidays? You're able to do that?
Especially in the summer, it's I cannot talk to my wife going on a holiday for less than 2.5 weeks in the summer. So it's very common to go on a holiday for 3.5 weeks in the summer. A lot of people just pack up their gear and with a tent and they go to the south of France or Spain or Italy. Which we did a lot when the kids were young, and now we are fortunate enough to travel more of the world. I have a relationship with the US, of course. So last year we did the East Coast or the West Coast, and now we did the East Coast. And it's a phenomenal country. Huh? Really like it.
Yeah, it's cool, but I think I'd take the Netherlands. That's a cool country. I love.
I agree. But there's so many great spots in the world, and I think exploring the world will makes everything richer for yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, but that's really cool. You guys get to do that, and it's cool that you've gotten to see the U.S. a little bit. And I know you guys got to go down to, you said Pirate City, right? And that's who you've been working with that organization for a while. That's how I learned about you from Bernie Holiday, Andy Bass, and you've been working with them 3-4 years now. Is that right?
No, it's already. I always think it's 3 years, but it's actually 5 or 6 years.
Oh wow! Yeah, time flies. Yeah. That's cool.
It does.
And that's how I've in other ways you've been on Rob Gray's podcast and through Andy Bass and through the Pirates have gotten to learn from you, and we've gotten to connect a couple times. But one of the things I've heard you talk about is this idea of a movement analysis, which isn't as fun about talking about the south of France and vacation, but hopefully we can take you into this stuff. I know it's something you guys do. So you do it with your Dutch national team, and you study the film and you figure out the movement for each player. Can you kind of just take us through some of that process and how you go about doing it?
Yeah. So it's actually to start it up. It's could be a long process because you have to figure out what's going on in, let's say, a swing or a pitch in baseball, or let's say a strike in volleyball. And then, even like how do the muscles work? So it's not only what you see from the outside, but it's almost thinking about what goes on underneath in the body and what you want to see and what actually is happening. And in that movement analysis, we're looking for stability. The whole movement goes from stable point to stable point, which we call attractors. And in between, there is some variation, which we call fluctuations. But these stable points, these stability points, these attractors, they show up in really good movement. So if you look at the top 10 of the best baseball hitters or the best baseball pitchers, they all have these forms of stability. And then the question becomes, okay, how does this guy that we are working here with right now, how does he go through these stable points? And then we grade that through the video, and then so everybody has different parts that are stable or not stable. That's why we do a individual analysis and not a global one. So we train everybody the same way. Now we try to attack the points that this person needs to attack to get it better. And then we do this every 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And then we discuss this with the player. So it might look like a very intensive work, but actually you can go through a analysis once you have done it a couple of times. You can within 10-15 minutes, maybe 20. And then this is the training plan comes out of this for the player. So let's say we have 6 skill practices or 5 a week. Then we create situations, but then the guy that has to work on his front foot stability, he can work in these situations on his front foot stability. Another guy that maybe needs more to work on his optimum length of the core because it transports the energy. He can do that too within these situations. So it might look like there's a lot of stuff going on, but these players, they know, because we have an extensive talk with them to set their goals for the next 6 to 8 weeks, so they can be part of their own learning. They can have ownership of their learning, and they know why they do it to some extent. And then we just walk there and we just give them feedback or we help them, but they all are on their own program. Yeah, so we start with a movement analysis. Then we talk to the player, and we talk about the personal development plan and what they need to work on in the next 8 weeks, and then we start doing it.
That sounds pretty different than some of the training I've been around, which takes more of the global approach, I guess, where like the coach already knows the demands for each position, and then it's a matter of teaching, a few keys or fundamentals to the player. I guess, what do you see as could we go into more of the advantages of having the individual programs?
Yeah, I think if somebody has a really good front foot stability, he doesn't need to work on it anymore. And doesn't mean that we don't do general stuff. So let's say out of those 6 practices, we have 1 or 2 that everything comes by, but we definitely give them time to actually work on the stuff that they really need to work on, because then we think everybody is on their own pace of their development, and everybody has different stuff that they need to work on. And I think we as coaches should give them the opportunity to work on exactly that, and not just okay, everybody has to do the same program and then we hope everybody gets better. Why not attack certain problems?
Yeah, I can imagine the motivation must go way up for the player when it feels specific to them versus I'm just a cog in the wheel. I'm just going to do the same thing everyone else is doing. So it makes sense.
And especially when you come back to it 6 weeks later or 8 weeks later, when you do the analysis again and they say, hey, we worked on this and it really got better. Yeah. Let's see what the next point is you need to work on. Or, hey, we worked on this, but it's not getting better. Why is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you measure that?
Yeah, so you measure, of course, you have hard data output. Let's say how hard somebody hits or how hard somebody throws, or the spin rate, the horizontal and the vertical movement.
Right.
But also just the film itself. Like if somebody collapses to his front leg and now he's not because he stiffens up, you can obviously really see that.
Do you ever see someone who maybe the data improves, like the spin rate gets better, but the attractor on video looks like less stable? Probably wouldn't be a good attractor if so.
It does happen, but it doesn't get less stable. It doesn't get better or something, but it does go harder. That happens too.
Right.
Which means a lot of times you say, hey, that's interesting. We worked on some stuff. There's stuff being improved, but not exactly what we wanted. But so there's more in the tank even. So that's not a bad thing per se.
Okay. And what about, I'm sure there's also individual considerations for maybe how many problems for each player to have? Like some people can take in more. I don't know. I could take on 4 different problems and others one. I don't know. Have you found like a general sense, or do you take that specific as well? And maybe you could take us into some of those details.
So first of all, I think if somebody needs to work on a thing, like working on one thing instead of 3 things at the same time, like we all know that you can have attention for one thing really, and then so giving somebody feedback like 3 or 4 cues, I would not do that,
Right.
because it just blurs the mind. And okay, I'm working on this, and I give somebody feedback. Okay, you need to work on, let's say again, core strength, and the hip needs to come through. So there's elastic return when you have the kinetic chain, and you do stuff for that. And of course, he's trying. So the first time he does it, it's not going to be perfect because he's figuring out how to do it because he's focusing in on that. It might take 10, 20, 30, 40 tries before he gets it. And a lot of times there's other errors occurring because he's doing something new. If you get off of what you are focusing in on and give him another, now your front leg is not doing, or you dropped your arm, then you need to give him time to figure it out. And what we use a lot is bandwidth feedback. Okay, we accept errors within a bandwidth, but if it goes over, when it becomes really crazy or dangerous, then we say, oh, stop. But when he stays within that bandwidth, we just let him figure it out. Because instant feedback every time he does a try just makes the player probably go like, oh, now I do this wrong, now I do that wrong, now I have to do this, while we're actually focusing in on one little theme of the movement analysis.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody does like 3 attractors wrong, then you have to find out what the gang leader is. Let's say, okay, let's find out what is the most important one. If we make that one better, then probably a lot of other stuff will get better as well. And there's no play for that, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes we start at the end of the movement, like when it becomes very stable, that end point, and the body finds out a way to get there. Sometimes it's the beginning of the movement, because when he starts the wrong way, then it's like a domino effect. Right. And even sometimes it's the core, because the transport of energy from the lower body to the upper body, if it goes wrong there, then he's just throwing with his arm, which we do not want either. So it's hard to say, oh, it's this or it's that. It's depending on where somebody is in his development, and how stable certain parts are, and what is wrong. And sometimes we just start with this, and then after a week or 2, we say, well, it's not working. Let's switch. So of course, time in between as well to change if somebody has multiple things that he needs to work on. Right.
You mentioned that idea of instant feedback, which I know isn't something that you guys do. And I know, in your culture and your program, you guys have been doing this for a while. But as I've been around more American coaches who've been trying to explore using this more ecological framework, they've said, my players want more feedback. They want this instant feedback. Is there any things you found to, I guess, help change that culture and help change their mindset around that?
Yeah, well, so it depends on, first of all, it depends on the movement. If it's where in the movement can you give instant feedback, and where should you not give as much feedback? And when a movement goes really fast, then it's hard for the mind to change that. But if you think about the start of a movement, then there's more instant feedback possible. So it depends on the movement and how fast it goes or how slow it goes. The slower it goes, the more feedback you can give, the more I can do with it. the faster it goes, the less feedback I can handle. I just have to experience it. So you have to create multiple learning experience, let's say. But before we start, we always give a presentation to the players, like kind of how it works and what they're used to and what they think they want to hear, because they can do with it. But then also the reality of that it's almost impossible to handle that feedback. So we do give them some information beforehand, so they know why we train the way we train. And then we just say, hey, this is just one big playing field, and you have just to learn how to move, to learn how to solve movement problems. And the better you are getting in solving movement problems, the better you will get in movement. And then it opens up a lot of creativity for the player and a lot of variation, which they, once they do this for 2 or 3 weeks, they really like it and love it. But then also sometimes they say, oh, again, I just want to hit the ball right down the middle, no variation, because that feels good.
Yeah.
You know, and a good feeling of a player versus what they need doesn't match a lot of times.
Yeah, good feeling.
If they want to get better.
Right. I was gonna say, good feeling means you're not learning. You're doing what you're already good at. So that's usually not a good sign, right? I mean,
yeah. But also, like, let's say we're training to get better, or we training to maintain, or we training to prepare. Like, those are different things as well. Like, maybe they need some mindless repetition just before they start a game, because that gives them a lot of confidence. Yes, you can do that, but if that is your training philosophy to make players better, then I don't think that's the way to go. But there is time and place for those different strategies.
Yeah, and what about, so you said kind of communicating to the whole group the idea of, you know, how you're going to implement the plan. What about individually when you give each person their movement analysis? It feels like it'd be easy to get, like, overwhelm them with anatomy and all the attractors. Like, I guess what sort of language do you use, and how do you simplify it, or do you keep it complex?
No, we try not. We just say, hey, like, okay, because you go through your back leg, your direction is that way, and you need to throw that way. Do you think that is very efficient? No. Okay, when you land with your front foot and you collapse totally through it, do you think you can transport energy? No. Okay. So it's I think a lot of times they or we as coaches underestimate the level of what the players are able to handle. And I think a lot of times they are, because the internet is everywhere, and they go online and they see different trainings and different commercial training facilities and what they're all doing. And so they know a lot, actually, I think. So I think you need to inform them. And I think, especially at the age when they turn to like 18, 19, 20, they should be a part of what we're doing, because it's their development and they know a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and some people just say, okay, I just want to do it. And a lot of players very analytical, and he wants to get more information, which is fine. It's just a matter of, when you do the movement, you have to focus on what your goal is, what you try to hit, and not think about how you do it.
Right. Yeah, I want to get into that more as we go, but staying on the specific movement analysis, I was hoping you could take us through maybe an example, like a more specific, whether it's with a pitcher, or I know you did the volleyball analysis you guys call it a smash, which I think is way better. We call it a spike or an attack. I like the smash. I think that's a way better.
Volleyball smash, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's way better. We say spikes. I don't know, or attack. But if you could take us through maybe, yeah, just how you would, and just a specific example of like how you do an analysis, and like I said, it could just be a baseball pitcher if you're up for it.
Yes. Wait. Are you seeing what I'm doing with my computer? Not yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay. Wait. I have to.
Want me to make you a co-host? I'll make you a.
Bro.
Does that help?
Wait. Give me one more minute.
Oh no, you're good. No worries.
Nope. I probably have something here. Yeah, I can show you this one.
Okay, cool. We'll get the inside scoop.
All right. Am I on the screen now?
No, I can't. I mean, I can see you, but not your computer.
Can we do that or not?
Yeah, you should be able to share screen. I gave you a. Is there a button down at the bottom that says share screen?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, do that.
The desktop, right? Or
Yeah.
the keynote attractor.
There we go. Now I can see it.
Okay, cool.
Sweet.
Okay. So let's look at this player. This is from one view, and this is actually what I do with my with the class in college. I give them a bunch of examples, and they have to do a movement analysis, and then we discuss it.
Can I don't know baseball that well, but can I take a stab at what I see? Can you tell me how?
Please.
I probably can't do it from an attractor framework. I mean, it seems like he has front foot stability, but he's got like a really high elbow. Like his elbow, he's not able to get as much rotation because it looks like he's above his shoulder, right? I don't know what that attractor would be, but yeah.
Okay.
What I missed.
That's kind of cool. So what we want is we want his hip to go straight to the catcher. So he loads in his back hip, and he uses that to go forward. So what we want is actually to have like a little hinge in the back hip.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at what he does, oh no, wait. Sorry. Always goes like this. Again, what you see is that he goes.
It cut off. No, it cut off for a second. Do it one more time.
Is it not still movement now?
It paused, at least for me.
Yeah, it paused. Yeah. Do you see this pause?
Yeah, his leg straight. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see he's not hinging in his back leg or his back hip, but he collapses through his knee. He bends in his knee. Yeah. So you see this end here?
Yeah.
So actually he's going this direction instead of that direction.
I see.
So he collapses his back knee instead of loading in the back hip. So his load is a big concern.
Uh-huh.
And now what happens is when he lands, his knee is here. And his foot is there. And look at his knee now. So it went from here all the way to there. So that's not good front leg stability.
Hmm.
And because he goes to his back leg or back knee, he goes in the wrong direction. Then he puts his foot with his knee all the way here, but he is in rotation. So his knee travels from here to here while it needs to be super stable. And that's why he tilts his upper body. And then you see that he cannot hold his optimum length in his core. So he's not transferring energy efficient up the chain. And you see a lot of head movement. So a still head is also a part of a movement analysis. So it might look good, but when you zoom in, there's a lot of stuff going on that is not good.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, okay, where do you start?
Right.
And with him, we really started with the load. And you see this collapsing through the back knee here. You see that it's stability, but it's passive stability. It's just using gravity instead of active stability, as in you use the muscles in the hip to move. When you are young, you're probably not coordinated enough to do that hip hinge, and you just start the movement by collapsing through your back knee. And then when you do that 10 million times, it becomes a pattern, of course, and it becomes really hard to change when you're older.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very important to have good coaching at a younger age as well, of course.
Yeah. Do you think a more stable hip hinge would help with that lean? Like, would that affect, like that? That's what sets everything off. So it would fix some of the other. I see.
Yeah, so he starts the wrong way, and it becomes a domino effect. Because you collapse through your back knee, your weight has been going in the wrong direction, and then you really have to go around your front leg, which means your front leg has to give in and has to move because your body is coming through. And then if you look at the really good ones, like the top pitcher for the Yankees, I cannot come up with his name.
The best I could do is Mariano Rivera. That's where I go.
He too. He does it really well.
Okay.
They're just going straight. They load in their back leg or in their back hip. They go kind of straight within a bandwidth. You can go a little bit to the right, and you see a lot of pitchers do that too. But they load in their back hip to give them direction. And the more flexible the hips are, the more I can get away with going a little bit to the right when I go to home plate. But this is too much.
I see this.
And it starts because collapsing through his back knee.
I see with volleyball players, it's pretty common to have that, it's easier to notice like the end of the movement if you're a novice with this stuff. Like you're seeing all the details, but I see a lot of volleyball players who finish with a lean, like they'll hit, leaning to their left to be able to hit to their right. But it sounds like that might come from more of, and the hard part of volleyball is we're in the air and there's the timing aspects.
And in the air it works. So you see here, it's really clear then, okay, your let me go here. So when you are applying force to the ground, here we go again. When you're applying force to the ground, so first, you plant your foot, your hip comes through, your upper body is still back. You can see me, right, or not?
Yeah, I can see.
I'll just...
Yeah, I can see.
So you plant your foot, the hip comes first, my upper body is still back, it creates tension in my core, and then as a whip-like boom, the upper body comes over it. But when I'm in the air, I do not have grip on the ground, of course. So how do I create that tension in the core when I'm in the air?
Yeah, you tell me.
And that is by pushing your right hip forward and your upper body backwards, and then when I spike or smash, I bring my left hip forward while I bring my right shoulder forward. So it's like a corkscrew because I'm in the air, and when I'm on the ground, it's on the ground. Hip comes first, upper body stays back, and then my right hip comes over. So it's actually the opposite of how it works on the ground. And then you see that the core is kind of, and the hips are the gang leader in transporting energy that needs to work the right way. And then you can add velocity to the spike. And I think, because I looked a little bit into it, of course, the position of where the ball has been and where you are at and where the defenders are blocking, you need to have more options in the air to hit it in different directions. So I think it's a very complicated movement.
Right. It's there's more options. I mean, pitching, you can kind of decide the pitch you're going to throw, whereas an attacker, you don't really know until you see what sort of defense, what sort of set you get. So then, but it sounds like you would start in general looking at the hips. Like that'd be the first place to look.
The hip and the core and how those work. Yeah.
I think it's really easy to be drawn to the, like, where the, you know, the load, like how are they loading their shoulder, and I think we get drawn to that part of it a lot. I don't think a lot of people look at the core and the hips first. So
yes, and I think with the arm, so we know is that, like, when the arm is on shoulder height or a little below, I can safely transport energy. And a lot of times, because when we jump, we use our arms to get up.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot in volleyball, my kids volleyball too, by the way.
Oh, cool.
When they volleyball, they bring their arms up and their arm stays up. And so the path of acceleration is shorter,
right,
and less safe than when it's here.
Yeah.
And you see with these great spikers, I saw a guy from France that is really good. When he goes up and then boom, he's here before he spikes. I think that's a crucial part too in being able to spike really hard.
Yeah, some of those guys have so much more time in the air to do that, where, you know, you're talking about a female athlete, younger athlete, there's not as much time to do, you know, all this movement because you're not in the air as long. It seems like that's so how do we help them do it?
So the question becomes, do you need to use all those movements to jump high when you don't have time? Right.
So you would modify some of those movements?
Yeah, well, so I think it's called rate of force development. Like you can use a counter movement to start the movement. You can, but also you can use co-contractions, pre-tension before you jump. Mm-hmm. And pre-tension, it means a whole region is already contracting, mm-hmm. which means it can immediately move. So ankle stiffness or hip stiffness in jumping, you see the faster somebody runs up. Oh no, let's use a different example. When I'm playing basketball and I'm underneath the ring, and I'm catching a rebound, I can go all the way down and to go up. But when I do when I move faster, I'm doing a layup. When somebody jumps, he's almost jumping with a fully extended leg, and both are jumping. And it's because he doesn't have enough time, so he jumps way more from elasticity, and the other guy jumps a lot more from counter movements.
Right.
When you do not have time, it's very smart to jump from co-contractions, from that total stiffness, then using counter movements. So if that is the way to go, then what exercises will you do in the gym? Because if I'm using I'm training my muscles like a pump, but in reality, I need to use the muscles in the game from pre-tension. Yeah, then I'm training that leg for jumping, the counter way of how it's being used in the game. If I do that in the gym, so. And this is a big thing that we do, is out of that movement analysis, it also gives a lot of information for our strength and conditioning department, how to train certain parts of the body. So there's a lot of ankle stiffness, there's a lot of hip stiffness, there's a lot of co-contractions in the core. So it means it's not lifting heavily and slowly big weights, but it's way more reactive.
Yeah, I wanted to get more into the gym talks. So I guess how do you use this movement analysis information when it comes to a strength and conditioning program?
Yeah, so like I said, maybe I can do this again. Wait, I'm gonna find this for you real fast. Okay, share my screen again. Let me see where that is. Oh, here. Scherm delen. Okay, so you see here on the left, you see a shot putter, and on the right, a javelin thrower, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, because the implement is so heavy, he cannot throw it, because otherwise his whole arm will tear apart. And the javelin thrower, has a light implement, so he can throw it. So if you see the muscles, and above it is the model hill, which is a very simple way of showing the muscle. The muscle has contractile elements here in the middle, the green and the red stuff. And then it has elasticity, which are the joints and the aponneurose and the tissue around the muscle. Now on the left, you can see that. Why is it not? Oh wait, I gotta. So on the left, you see the muscle is contracting within the contractile elements. You see that?
Yeah.
And on the right, that is not contracting, but it's the tendons that show the length change.
Right.
Now here on the right, this is the elasticity that we're talking about, and this can only happen when the whole region of muscles is contracting at the same time, and then it becomes a elastic unit. And on the left, it's when I have force production. So within our movement analysis, we really look at, okay, what part of the movement is being used and what muscles are being used here on the left, and they are they're creating energy, so the muscle has to work as a pump, and which part just translate energy, and those have to work in co-contractions, so we need the elastic components. Okay, so once you've seen that, then you can go into, okay, how do we train this? And I don't know if you know the Franz Boss exercise app.
Yeah, a little bit there's a lot of Aquaback stuff on there.
FBS exercise app, but Yeah, because it says, okay, it looks at 4 layers. Okay, the individual muscle, how should it be trained? Then you look at a local attractor, so it means it's a bigger form of stability. Then you look at global attractor, so it becomes even bigger, and then you look at the total pattern. Now, if we see that the individual muscle has to work as a pump in the strength and conditioning, you train it as a pump, let's say a bicep curl. If you are doing this, right? If it's a co-contraction, then we have to train it as a co-contraction, and you can train co-contractions by using 3 ways to train it. One is using pre-tension, so you say, okay, I want you to eliminate all counter movements. 2 is you use time pressure. And 3 is you use perturbations. And perturbations means you need unstable loads, and unstable loads, the aquaback is a form of an unstable load. So you first look at the whole movement and you say, okay, is the muscle working as a pump or not as a pump? If it's not as a pump, then it becomes an elastic unit. Okay, when it works as a pump, we need to train it as a pump. If it's not as a pump, but an elastic unit, you need to train co-contractions, and you can train co-contractions by using those 3 methods. And then you can work from an individual muscle to a bigger unit, to a bigger unit, to a bigger unit.
Right. Would you think, my first thought is in volleyball, most of our movements are not as a pump. It's more elastic, right? Is that your impression, or is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no. It depends on what position and what you do. Let's say the setup guy, they have more time, right? But also the more time you give somebody, the more you'll telephone away what you're gonna do, right?
Yeah.
So that's I'm not in deep enough into volleyball to know that.
Yeah.
But for sure, the spiking, it's all elasticity.
Yeah. I think the ball never comes to a stop, so it's a lot of react and respond. It seems like there's constant time pressure. So I'd imagine
so my daughter is the libero. She's just waiting, right? And I try to tell her, like, or train her, because she, like, you see a lot of people that first go this way to go that way. Like, but if you have co-contraction, you have tension in your body, you can immediately go that way, you're faster. So when you get the information, the visual information, and you know it's going to go that way, the faster you can move that way, the more chance you have in saving the ball.
Right.
And those are all co-contractions. And it's all from elasticity. It's all, the less counter movement, the better.
Yeah, that takes me into the next question I had, because I think traditionally we think, okay, we're in the weight room, we have high load and we get stronger, and then we're at practice and it's high specificity, low load. But what I've seen you guys in the Dutch Federation, you guys are in the middle, where there's a mix of, there's not a lot of high load, but there's load and specificity. So can you take us through some of those examples, or how you guys have done that?
So the question becomes, when you what are the downfalls or the negative effects of heavy strength training? And a lot of people don't even think about the negative effects.
Yeah, what are they?
Maybe you can name some?
Could I?
Yeah, could you?
I could try. Well, I mean, I imagine all the pressure on your joints and the injury potential of that. It seems like the time constraints are much different. Like, you're moving, if you have a heavy weight on your back, you're moving very slowly.
You cannot move fast.
You can't move fast, which is very different.
Yeah,
so
So
Not
one
game weight?
is, if you lift heavy, you cannot lift, you cannot move fast, and you need to move your body fast. So that's a negative effect of it.
Right.
The recovery time is high. It's 48 to 72 hours. So you cannot do it a lot. But I think the first one is even a bigger one. If you lift heavy, you move slow. Another big one is form follows function. So the more I do something, the more my body will form itself to resist that function. Now, in how many planes do you move when you do volleyball?
Infinite. I don't know.
There are 3 planes, and you move in all 3 planes.
All 3, yeah.
Okay, when you lift heavy, in how many planes can you move?
1.
In just 1.
Yeah.
Because I cannot, like, if I do a squat, and I cannot do a turn because I'll break my back. But the heavier I lift, I can only move in one plane. So the coordination, because my body adapts to that, the coordination of moving in 3 planes is disturbed. And that's a big negative effect of heavy strength training. I'm not saying you should never do heavy strength training. Yes, there is a time and a place to do that. But if that's the only thing you do, and you forget about the negative effects, and you forget about training in 3 different planes with a lower load, which is still an overload, then I think you also get less out of what you can get out of players.
Yeah. I know there's no recipes.
Basically, we look differently at strength training. We look way more coordination based to strength training, and thinking about how the 3 planes interact with each other, and we try to create an overload by keeping that I can come up with it. Trying to keep that going, moving in 3 planes instead of heavily lifting in 1 plane. So it's always a combination of lifting a little bit more heavier in strength training, but at the same time, when they're done, they need to do other exercises where they move in different planes with a lower load.
Right. I know there aren't recipes, but in general, when it comes to S&C, strength stuff, what % are you doing maybe more traditional clean squats compared to this more functional movement you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's in the winter, in the beginning of the winter, it's like 60-40, 50-50. 60-40 is in traditional or heavy strength training, and 40% coordination, or 50-50, and that changes to 80-20.
That's during season, 80-20?
Yeah, and just prior to the season, just like a month prior. So we typically have a block of like 16 weeks, 2 times 8 weeks for the more heavy strength training. But actually only the first block is 50-50, 60-40, and then it goes to 70-30, and then it goes to 80-20.
Got it. That's great.
So
and again, that exercise, that we use that a lot, because it's the same way of thinking, right? And it gives you so many options to also create variability in the strength training, a good variability, that we really like that.
That's great.
And then moving from the gym and strength and conditioning back to, I guess, the court or the field, what are some ways that you implement the plan in practice?
Yeah, we use the constraint-led approach and the toolbox of implicit learning, a combination of that. So it's endpoint learning, it's differential learning, it's forced environment and learning. It's using videos of good examples. So observational learning, we use a lot of metaphors. So we put that all into practice, and you probably want to have an example, so I can give you one, which you might like. I hope you like.
Examples are good.
I'll go share the screen again. So let's take differential learning. No, it's the other one. Sorry.
No
Got
problem.
the wrong one here. This one. Hey, wait, it doesn't want to. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
It just, oh, here, now I see it. Yeah. Yeah. The repetition without repetition. Yeah.
Yeah, so talking about differential learning, like let's say we want you to explore what solutions do not work and what solutions do work from the task, environment, and body perspective. So you find the solution space. So let's say all these yellow dots on the left-hand side are solutions for a problem. And I give you an example or a drill and say, okay, you need to do this drill. And you find out what part of those possible options are working, those are red, and which are not working.
Mm-hmm.
Now I give you another drill. And this is a forced environment, right? He steps over the hurdle, so we put him in a forced environment, and then he finds out that these are the options that work.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say, oh, now you have to do this drill. And he steps on different surfaces that are stable and unstable, and it's for front foot stability, of course. And then he finds that these are the options that work. And the exercise that we offer to him, it's not, okay, do 3 of these, do 3 of these, do 3 of these. They need to be chaotically given to him. And then what the body finds out, because there's so much variation on a certain part, let's say the front foot plant, is that you cannot plan it before, but the body will learn through experiences what it needs to do to stabilize that front leg. And that is differential learning, and that is how you find the solution space and make it really stable. So that's a form of differential learning that we use for, let's say, a front foot stability problem.
Mm-hmm. So you're putting him in all these different situations, different environments, different tasks, and he's discovering the solution that's best for him. Did you say he's doing 1 rep and then going to the next one, or how long is he interacting with the problem?
Well, it's up to like 4 tries in a row, but okay. you should let him, okay, go do this one. And then you say after 2 tries, stop. Now I want you to do this one. Mm-hmm. And after 3 tries, you say, stop. I want you to do the next one. Mm-hmm. It's this one. And then he does that 1 time. And then you say, stop. I want you to do the next one. And you do this 4 times. So you cannot let him get used to the exercise really fast. You go to the next one, not too fast, and then, so what you need to do in all these drills is you need to have a clear goal that he hits his target or not, let's say. You can also use, okay, once you hit your target twice in a row, then you move on to the next one, because then he found the solution for it.
Mm. Yeah, it seems like the benefit baseball has is it's a lot of one-on-one duels, or volleyball we have so many people interacting. Yeah,
it's perfect for us.
Yeah.
So what you have to keep in mind, John, is that like when you do differential training, so you increase variation. That means that the learning results can go down. So if you give him too much variation, you're not learning either. So you got to keep in mind that there's a certain success rate, let's say 70% success rate, 60% success rate, more success than not success. Because if you go over it, then you're not learning. So this guy that is better can use more variation than the other guy as well.
Yeah.
Now I think for volleyball, so let's say a spike, you can do that. You can train that kind of in these ways, right? But there's a lot of interaction within the team, how they react to each other.
Right.
And I think for that is random learning is a very good way of teaching, which means I do not do blocked exercises. And block means, okay, I'm doing 20 spikes in a row now. Or let's say the setupper goes, okay, we're only doing setup and the spike, but you do more variation in all the different skills that are being used while playing volleyball, and you randomly offer that to them, and then you go, oh, it looks pretty much like just playing volleyball probably, but you learn a lot from that as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's I mean, it's such a well thought through process you guys have. I mean, there's so much just gets my brain going, gets me thinking, how are we going to implement it? How do we take these ideas into our environment, which, like I said, it's different, but there's some ways to implement this, obviously.
So I think like in volleyball, they all have different tasks. You can train these tasks individually from each other, and then when you do that, you can use a lot of differential learning. But once you get them all together, which I assume the majority of the time you do that, then it has to be the more random, or the more random, that's not the right way. Randomness should be a big part of it, and it depends on the level of these players. They should have some success. The randomness of that and the success of that dictates how much randomness you use.
Right. Yeah, keeping in mind that kind of challenge point hypothesis, right? Like how much are we at the right challenge point?
Yeah.
I just had one more. I know it's late there, and but I was going back to your smash analysis that you did, and there is a note, and I've kind of been thinking and trying to learn more about deceleration and how it's one of our major injuries for you and for us too, is shoulder stuff. And you said out in the smash analysis that it's crucial to shoulder health and high velocity.
Is it shoulder or is it elbow with you guys?
I'd say more shoulder. Yeah, I don't think we get elbow stuff as much. Maybe we're not, because we're not trying to like spin it like you guys. I don't know. But yeah, I'd say more shoulder.
Yeah. So this is funny. I had a guy, a physical therapist, and he contacted me from Holland, and he says, "Hey, can I talk to you?" So I say, "Yeah, sure, come over." And he's like, when nobody knows what to do with shoulder injuries, they send them to him, and he fixes them. And he's been doing intuitively a lot of stuff, and then he did the Franz Bosch course and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, now I kind of know what I'm doing, but I really don't." And so I said, "Come over." I said, "What is it that you do?" And I'll show you what he does.
Okay.
You will probably start implementing this.
That's great. It's always nice to have some practical tools.
Yeah, let me check where it is. Yeah, this is one of them, but I have. Let me check. Oh yeah. Where is? Oh yeah. So these are just two forms, but this on the ball.
Yeah.
And so you just get a gym ball on your knees and you roll the ball around you. So your shoulder is working in all these different positions, but it's connecting the shoulder blade with the upper arm, and it has to work together, and it gets into all these end positions, which makes them a lot more. The range of motion becomes, and not only the range of motion, but how it's connected to each other. So the degrees of freedom, and stuff like this. Because when you're finding your balance, you do it with your arm, and then again, it's working really, really hard to find the balance. And he does. So there's a million options of this, and he does a lot of work like this. And so we started implementing this for our pitchers. And this winter, we did not have, and I'm not saying it's because of this, but this is the thing that we changed. We did not have any arm injuries in this winter.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. And it's, again, using the same thing. It's using self-organization and the degrees of freedom, and using all these bands, because like the rotator cuff, the four muscles, we train them a lot individually, but actually they work in reality as one unit. And again, when you train them differently, it adapts by being worked on individually and not as one unit. So the coordination changes. And with doing it like this, the coordination doesn't change. It just enhances the coordination of working together.
Yeah, that's great. So that's on the health side. What about, I know it can also affect velocity. Like, what are things you could do to help with velocity?
Yeah, that's another one.
Sorry. Should have asked you before you closed it.
What?
I should have asked you before you closed it.
No, you're good. So, and this is from, oh wait, I gotta first connect you, right? So if you look at the constraints-led approach, and you look at between the task and the environment and how they interact with each other, there's a couple of rules for self-organization. So first, if it's too easy, anything works, so you need to fail. So if you do stuff like this, you always hit the screen. So it doesn't mean you're learning anything. But if I say just only hit the green ones, then it becomes more specific. You probably fail a couple of times, and then you get enough information to learn. But if you look at over and underload, which is a big thing in baseball, and this is how you learn how to throw harder, is one of the things that you can use. If it becomes too hard, you lose all self-stability. So again, if I'm letting a pitcher here throw with a shot of 10 kilos, I'm not able to self-stabilize my joint, and I'll break. And if you look at this study that they did, we know we need to throw the ball with the elastic components. So it needs to be within, let's say, 80% of the original weight, because you see here that the energy is transported elastically. We said yes to this, that I can use it. So, but look at that. That's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And you see the energy just been transported up the system. You see there's a lot of tension in the abdominals. You see that the hip comes first. Right now, the arm is back. You see his whole abdominals are stretched, and it comes over. Same in the arm. Now, they did a study with players, and they used 2-ounce balls up to 32-ounce balls, and 32-ounce balls is 6 times more than 6 times of the original weight of a baseball. So that's almost like you're throwing a shot, and they had almost 25% injury rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to be in that study.
No.
So an over and under load is a really good thing to throw harder, but you have to do it safe. And I think in track and field they use it 10 to 20% of the original weight, but there's not a lot of studies out there that show you exactly what the percentage should be of the original weight. So we use it safely, and we just go up to like 7, I think. So we use 4, 5 is the original, 6 and 7, and not more than that. But an over and under load will, especially under load, will give you more speed.
So if you were to do it in volleyball, do you think that would transfer if it was on the ground, or would we need to do jumping and throwing with the overload, underload?
Yeah, I think because the abdominals need to work in a different way. So I would do it a lot with jumping.
Yeah.
For sure. But you also need speed in the arm, and you can also train that on ground probably. But again, it's about the specificity. So yeah, you can train it on the ground, but it should not be the majority of the time. It should be just a part up to like 30-40% of it.
Yeah.
Because you can only jump so much, I guess.
Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I took a lot of your time, and this is amazing. I could go 4 more hours, but
I have one more drill for that, because I did the analysis for the Arnold van Rey. He runs the Olympic Center for the boys for volleyball. He throws a ball up in the air. He lets it come down and come up. But because it's so high, it comes up really fast. And then he just says, wait. And really at the last moment, they have to hit. So you create time pressure. So you create a lot of arm speed. That's one of the things that he does. I thought that was really good.
Interesting. And they don't jump on that. They stay on the ground when they...
Yeah, they stay on the ground with that.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I like that.
Yeah, I never thought of it. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, really creative. It doesn't... I'm out on the beach more, so it wouldn't bounce very well off the sand, but we could do it.
It doesn't bounce.
Yeah.
No.
That'd be just a way to be mean to our players.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks again for, all this is amazing, so much to take in and to dive into. But if someone does want to continue down this route, what are next steps? You mentioned the Franz Bosch app. Like, what are ways people can keep learning and understanding, and maybe courses they could take or things you recommend to continue this path?
Well, for sure, the 2 books that Franz wrote. There's another book. It's from Vickers. It's called The Quiet Eye, Decision Training, I think. I'm not sure the whole title.
Yeah,
it's a really good book too. But yeah, if you dive into that, and if you look up those books, there are so many references in that book that, because if you look at the research on this, there's hundreds of books that go into this in this subject that you can learn a lot from, for sure.
Yeah. And where do we sign up for the Martijn class?
I don't know. We're trying to make a baseball online course.
That's great.
But it's not volleyball.
Yeah.
So for the people that are really into it, I know Franz does online courses. It's half online, half in real life, but they're not cheap. But I did it, and I'm one of the people that sometimes am a mentor. It's a really, really good course. But it's a question of availability. I don't think he does it a lot in the US, and it's not cheap, but it's really good. But yeah, you can for sure pick up the books. And people that are really into it, they can always contact me. I like to spar with people.
Good. Hopefully we'll start some spars.
Yeah, let's go.
I think they'll lose. Okay, well, this was awesome. Thanks so much again for the time. It means a lot.
Thank you too. And yeah, I hope people can do something with it.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot to explore, a lot to begin with. So
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm gonna have follow-ups. So, and I'm sure more people will too.
cool.
All right.
All right, thanks for